Greetings, good people. Let's talk about Estonia. No, I'm not in the country, but the weather kind of gives a good ambiance for this topic. If you've ever been to Estonia, you know it for its beautiful coastline on the Baltic Sea, its medieval architecture, especially in Tallinn. Highly recommend to visit it. But in the wealth management space, it was also once known as an offshore jurisdiction. They used to have 0% tax on corporate undistributed profits, until recently. Starting with 2026, the Estonian government is now implementing a defense tax, quote unquote, for the Ukraine war, supposedly a temporary measure, but as we know, for all temporary measures, they end up being permanent. Now, this video isn't about Estonia's taxes because, quite honestly, it was never really a great jurisdiction for it. It was mostly used for access to European banks, cheap access to European banks, as well as for its crypto licenses. No, this video is about how these smaller countries may not be the best bet for a long-term asset protection and wealth management strategy because they're constantly at the whim of larger geopolitical machinations and constant turf wars between regional and larger powers. Allow me to tell you a little story. You see, a couple of years ago, our company was actually based in Latvia, the neighboring country. And we wanted to expand, and we thought that, Estonia is just up north. How about let's form a company and open a bank account over there? Now, forming a company was very, very easy. We all were e-residents, which I'll talk about a bit down the line. And so we could set it up in about a day or two. And the next step, obviously, is to open a bank account because, as I said in the previous video, a company without an account is just a stack of useless papers. So we chose one of the larger banks over there, which was SEB at the time, and we went in through their offices. We said that we're an Estonian company, the beneficial owners were Latvian, and they said, we don't open accounts for foreign beneficial owned companies. Just for some context, this was an Estonian company with owners who were from a supposedly neighboring country, which is friendly, Latvia, and the banks wouldn't open a bank account. They said, go to Latvia, go to some other place. Now, let me be very, very clear. This banking fiasco had nothing to do with the Estonian government and everything to do with its masters, the United States, telling its colony how to behave. Since joining the EU and NATO in 2004, American troops have been stationed in their country, and they constantly need to get the green light for any international economic policies. And obviously, Estonia is perched right on the edge of the big, mean, nasty Russians, and Americans like to exploit this fear. And sometimes, the Estonian government will just have to shoot its foot if it goes against American policy. Now, the real reason why the Estonian government probably implemented this defense tax has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. The real reason is probably that their policy to attract wealthy foreigners and businesses simply fell flat. Back in 2014, when they launched the e-residency, the idea was for these foreigners to be able to do business and integrate themselves into the advanced Estonian infrastructure. So you could open companies online, you could sign documents electronically. Sounds great, right? Well, at first, you could also open bank accounts with this e-residency. But then came their masters, the Americans, and basically said, whoa, this is going against our anti-money laundering policies. This could be exploited by the Russians. And all of a sudden, if you can't form a bank account, if you can only open a company, but you can't store your business's money generated in Estonia, then what's the point of the company in the first place? So in the end, hardly anybody used the e-residency, except for a couple of crypto businesses because Estonia actually innovated with the crypto licenses, one of the first countries to do so. So between 2017 and 2022, they had this policy until the Americans torpedoed that too, over fears of money laundering and financial terrorism by the Russians. So that's why the defense tax is now being implemented, so that the Estonian government can at least suck out some of that foreigner money and take a little slice of the pie. So, what can we take away from this situation? Well, I think Machiavelli 600 years ago said it best in his book, The Prince. he advised that neutrality is not a good option for weaker states, and told them to basically ally themselves with contending powers. And in the game of geopolitics, Estonia is sandwiched next to Russia, and America is going to use that and exploit it, even if it means that Estonia has to shoot itself in the foot. And that's why all these YouTube promoters who talk about Estonia or Latvia or these smaller neutral countries take their advice with a grain of salt, because in most likelihood, they have never done business in these countries. Sure, by all means, visit Estonia for its beautiful landscape, for its medieval architecture in Tallinn, or its beaches in Pärnu. But don't think that this is a great place to do business. And a lot of these YouTube promoters, they say that, oh, well, they have these amazing loopholes and residency options. But as I keep emphasizing, these are only temporary. The countries only get to do that because their masters, whether it be China, Russia, or the United States, allow them to do it. And it doesn't go against their geopolitical motives. And believe me, the moment that the tax policy goes against the incentives of the larger geopolitical force, that law is going to be overturned overnight. So, unless you're a digital nomad, in which case you don't really care about the constant mobility, heck, you might even find it advantageous because you get to visit more countries. But if you're trying to build a business, one of the things that you value is predictability. And that's why it actually makes more sense to incorporate in stronger countries and larger powers, because you know that the law isn't going to flip on you in a split second. They actually get to choose their economic policies. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Those were my 2 cents on the topic because we've had quite some experience in the Baltics. But if you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. I'll be seeing you in a future presentation, but until then, bye-bye.